Little boy playing in the street. Worn clothes, no shoes on his feet. Little boy never.
Jeez. All right, how's it going, everybody? This is Backseat Therapy with Jon English, and I'm Aaron Underwood. We're just kind of going through basically some of your life, man.
Yes.
Some of the stuff you've lived through, endured.
Yep. It just chronologically going through it.
You said that really nice.
I think I did. Washed my tongue this morning. It seems to be working. But anyways, yeah, it's just my life story as a child, being an orphan and in the system, and growing up in it, and moving on, and overcoming, and deciding not to let all that crap affect me in a major negative way. So.
Yeah, I always like to say, I mean, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a certain amount of trauma, but
they do.
But it's what you do with it, really. I mean, if we can use that story and overcome it, and now we show strength,
right?
Or we can use that story as an excuse for why we show weakness.
That's true. And I had those moments. I did use it as a leverage for bad habits.
Oh yeah, we all
excuses and such. But
like I say, we all got our trauma. We all deal with it in our own ways, I guess.
And so that's what the podcast is about. It's just a means to tell my life story. Since people are always asking me when we're out on tours and doing shows with the band, what's the Orphan Jon about? Orphan Jon the Abandoned, how that ties in. And so several people, they're always saying, hey, you ought to write a book. Don't have time to write a book. Extremely busy. So we got talking about one night, you and I. It's like, hey, let's do a podcast and go from there. And it's also a means to give to my children and my grandchildren and then so forth from there, great-grandchildren and all, the history of where I came from, where their dad, grandfather, and all that. It's part of that, too.
Awesome. But before we get into the episode today, I want to shout out the sponsors.
Yes.
Red Shed out in Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Just a really cool venue. It's like a modern-day juke joint, I would probably
and
equate that to.
It's really nice. I mean, it's bring your own booze, BYOB, which is killer. I mean, when you think about it.
that helps a lot.
And what's crazy is every show, it doesn't matter. And they bring in some serious acts.
They bring in some heavy hitters.
GA20. They've had Amanda Fish, Nick Schneblin. Man, a lot of them. And $20.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's
$20 to get in.
And if you're bringing your own alcohol, it's going to cap at $20.
Right.
Now, and they usually have a food truck out there. You got that barbecue guy, and he's great.
They got a real good barbecue guy out there now, yes.
And speaking of barbecue, we got Salty's Barbecue
out of my hometown, Batesville, California. Jeff Salters and all them. It's one of the best. It was featured on, Diners?
Drive-ins and Dives.
Yes, it was featured on that a few years ago. So you can find that on whatever it is, Paramount or Peacock. You can find that episode. But yeah, Jeff's a great guy, and he gives back to the community. He's been a great friend of mine, supporter of the band, and now he said he'd love to help sponsor this show and get the word out about what it's like to be in the system as an orphan and overcoming.
So he's sending us some burn-ins, is what you're saying. He's going to sponsor the show with some burn-ins.
Got that, Jeff? Jeff.
Excellent idea.
And then speaking of Jeff, we got Jeff Stevens, who has the IOF.
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
It's something like he does inflatables, I know. I don't really know. It's
IOF Entertainment. Yeah. He does inflatables. He does fireworks for Wichita State University. He just did that last night.
Maybe that's what it means, inflatables or fireworks.
I mean, that's it. Inflatables or fireworks. So he does that. And so all your needs on that, he does tents for the state fair.
Nice.
He does that. I mean, it's like whatever your needs are, and sound, production, lighting, everything. Yeah, stages. Somebody over off to the side here said stages. Stages. So that's our sponsors: IOF Entertainment or Productions and Salty's Barbecue and the Red Shed. And we're open to more sponsors. So if you want to sponsor, just hit us up. You'll find us. We're out there.
Pretty easily found.
Yeah, pretty easy, I think. Check us out on YouTube and Spotify.
So when we left off, you were in California.
Mm-hmm.
You were third grade? I think we're going into third grade.
We're going
today.
into third grade, yes.
Yeah.
We moved out. I just moved out to DeGeorgia Farms, which is southeast of Lamont, which is southeast of Bakersfield. So it's like, doot, doot, doot. I'm out there, and it's a farming community out by Arvin, California. And that's where things really kind of went crazy for me as far as the abuse that really intensified, things like that, was when I was living at Georgia Farms in a farmhouse out there. So that's the start of my second grade. Halfway through my second grade, we moved out there. And so now what we're going to cover today on this episode is my third grade. And there's a lot. I thought we might two-part it. I don't really want to two-part it. Thinking about it's like there's a lot of crap there, and we'll just go right through it.
Yeah, if we move through it,
we'll move through it and see.
But I don't want you to skip over anything.
Well, no, but I've been finding that when I delve into giving it thought, there's a lot of shit
Yeah, I'm sure it
I've
stirs
hidden
up.
away and is coming to surface. And even at my age, I'm 58. It still affects me.
Is there a lot of stuff that you're finding kind of buried as you go into it?
Yeah,
It's like,
it is. And I'm like, oh my
it's
God,
coming
I
back
forget.
up.
I hadn't thought about that happening in years, and,
Yeah,
and
right.
things that happened, and you put it away, try to just move on, and I've been pretty good about doing that. But then doing this podcast, it's like, well, some of the stuff's come back to surface, and I think it's therapeutic. At the same time, it's emotionally it's pretty tough for me to handle.
They say that once we hit a point of felt safety, we
Mm-hmm.
kind of work backwards through our trauma.
Yeah.
And so dealing with stuff in third grade, second grade,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it means that you've handled quite a bit of it. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's stuff that those things are just that foundation, emotional foundation in a negative way that affected my life growing up. It was always there. There's things I do to this day because of what happened when I was a child.
Right.
The way I look at life, the way I react to people and conduct myself. No excuse. I've always said it's no excuse. It's just this is the reason why. I'm not going to say that I'm a perfect person because God knows I ain't nowhere near perfect. And that's why this podcast was important to me to do too. So my kids, because they, especially my oldest, she went through a lot of brutal stuff. I mean, emotionally, nothing physical, but emotionally from me because I didn't know how to be a dad.
Well,
And that's tough. And so I want her to know this is why I acted the way I acted. It's not an excuse. But her and I have a great relationship, now moved on from all that.
Yeah, and sometimes if you know the reason, you can go, okay, I see that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
at least, it's not an excuse, but at least like maybe they can sympathize.
Right.
Go,
A little
okay,
more
yeah,
understanding.
Yeah, I get where that came from. So.
And then for foster children, especially in schools, I've heard it. You've dealt with it with your son. There's teachers don't, and it's not their fault, but a lot of people don't understand why this foster child acts the way they do.
Right.
They don't understand the psyche. They don't get it. And you can go and take courses. You do all the research, but when real life hits you and it's right there present before you, there's been times that I have friends that are teachers I went to school with back in the day, and they went on to become teachers in elementary, junior high, high school, and they have reached out to me and saying, hey, I have this student who's in the foster care system, and this is going on, this is how they act, and they would seek counsel from me to see, is my approach right? Do I need to look out for something?
Right.
And I always, because I'm not an expert, I can only speak from my own personal experiences, but I try to guide them a little bit and give them an idea, well, this person's this away because the one thing I think that's a constant with foster kids is acceptance. There is no acceptance. They find it hard to be accepted because right off the bat, they're tossed aside by the ones that should be protecting them.
Yeah.
And
they're missing that role model. So they tend to try things
yeah,
differently. Like
they do.
just kind of, we'll just throw that at the wall, see if it sticks. You know
Right.
what I mean? And so they kind of just try a bunch of really goofy stuff. And,
Yeah.
and you just got to support them. You just got to be like, all right, brave fashion choice, but let's go. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, yeah. So, so third grade, I'm living at the Georgia Farms, and I have some pictures that was given to me years ago after my adopted dad had passed away by his ex-wife, and she had saved them that he had, and he sent them to me. So that's going to be part of what we're doing here too, is sharing those photos. And there's some pictures in there of me at the first house we lived in, the Georgia Farms. And at that house that we first lived in, there was some abuse, which we spoke about in the previous episode and such, because, you know, I had a bad problem, fear of the dark, and I wouldn't get up, go to the bathroom, I'd wet the bed, all of that. And then how I was publicly humiliated because I wouldn't get up and go to the bathroom because I was scared out of my mind, and all this stuff. And so that's what we covered in that house. What happened is it's like an evolution, I guess, because in Wheat Patch, none of these things really happened. Moved to Georgia, second grade, things start happening. And then we moved across the street, directly across the street from that first house at Georgia Farms to this other house. And that's when it really just went off the tracks on the abuse. There was never no sexual abuse by my foster mother. There was just mainly mental, emotional, and physical. And so one of the things is, to give you an idea, is they would go to this Hart Park, which is outside of Bakersfield. It's a memorial park. It's a real nice park and all this stuff. It has a little pond. We call it the duck shit pond because it's duck. You know, there's no. It's just yeah. So there's this one incident that happened, and where there was this. I guess it's an elm tree. It's not an oak tree. It's not a eucalyptus, but it's this huge tree, and they have, you know, ginormous branch and have a rope on it. And kids would come out and grab the rope and swing out and jump into the water. And so my foster mother's family, the Porters, would go and do this picnic thing. And then so I get to go with them. Clarence and I, my older brother that was with me in the home too. And, you know, so we get out of the house. So I'm happy because I'm not in the house doing all these chores all day. Yeah. We get out there, and Jesse's younger brother, David, is a big guy. He talked me into going and getting in the water. Now, I don't remember ever being in water before, ever swimming. I never was in no pool or nothing. So I go out there with him, and he puts me on his shoulders, and he wades out into deep end. Back then it was pretty deep. He gets out there and to where the water's about to his chest. And so then he just takes me and just launches me off of his shoulders into the water.
You can't swim
Unexpected.
yet.
Yeah, I can't swim. Unexpected.
Yeah.
And so that, I to this day, I remember going under the water, the sound, trying to breathe and everything. And just, you know, I basically turned into just lost it.
Well, you're panicking.
Yeah. And so he grabs me, pulls me up out of the water, and I'm upset and everything. And he gets me calmed down. He promises he won't do it again. He's just laughing and carrying on. He puts me on his shoulders again, and he does it again. And he just kept doing this. And this went on for a little while, to the point to where I was making such a scene and a ruckus because I was just freaking out, that some families nearby, because it's a picnic area, across where the lake, the little pond is, there's a road there, you know, in the park, and then there's trees where everybody's picnicking. Well, they called the rangers on us. So these park rangers show up. You know, they have words and everything, shut it down, and you know, and because I embarrassed them when I got home, I got a beating.
Because you embarrassed.
Because I embarrassed them. You know, it was just that. You know, when you're an 8-year-old boy, 9-year-old boy, never swam in your life, and your first experience in water is, let's just throw you in here, and it's you know the old saying about, you know, just toss them in the water, they'll sink or swim. Yeah. Okay, I get that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But the problem was, once it was obvious that I'm freaking out, instead of doing the right thing and taking me out of the water and calming me down, no, let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And that's pretty rough to deal with as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like you said, you know, the panic, you have no control. Ain't like I can beat them off of me and get them to leave me alone. I couldn't swim away from them. It's just, hey, let's pick you up and throw you in again. And so, because the Rangers showed up and all that got shut down, they were pissed off at me. So when I got home, of course, I got a good old-fashioned beating, and it wasn't, I never got whipped. There was never no whipping. It was always beating. It's like, they'll go out there and get the switch thing. Yeah, that old traditional thing, but just beat the shit out of me. So there's that. And then what eventually happened was, so my foster dad, the English side of things, they're originally out of Rector, Missouri, their family. Family's still there in that area. And my adopted dad was born in St. Louis. At that time, he was my foster dad. He was born in St. Louis, Missouri. So they're just as oaky, I guess, or, backwoods as the Porters. But they were the compassionate side. And I don't know why it was this way, but they never abused me. They never did anything remotely like the Porters did. And so what happened was there was a situation not long after that my Uncle Don, which is my adopted dad's brother, it's Gary, Don, Melvin, and Mike. There's 4 boys. So Don, he was house sitting for some friends. They had a pool. And so we go over there. And so my Uncle Melvin's there, my Uncle Mike. And they're at that time, I guess they would be, Mike was still in high school, so they had to have been like 18, 20, early 20s. We get in the pool. Well, they want me to get in the pool. Well, I'm freaking out.
Yeah. Like,
and they don't know why.
Yeah. I don't do water.
Yeah.
Not now.
Yeah, they don't have no idea. And I'm just like, we're not getting in the pool. And so they coax me. So I go ahead and get in. Well, Melvin, he puts me on his shoulders.
You're like, I know this trick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My mind, and I remember I latched onto his chin. And the Englishes, the men, they all had curly hair, real curly hair. As a matter of fact, my adopted grandfather, their dad, his nickname was Curly. I never knew his name was Marvin until when he passed away. Up until then, I always knew him as Curly. My grandma Ruth called him Curly. All of his friends called him Curly. And that was why, because he was curly-headed. They were real curly-headed. And they all had beards, that typical 70s pork chop sideburns, all of that, right? And so I'm latching on to Melvin's neck and his chin.
You throw me, I'm taking you with me, man.
And I remember him trying to pull my hands away, and he's like, he doesn't get it. He's like, what, trying to get me, hey, calm down, kid. It's okay, it's okay.
Swimming. Yeah.
And he was just taking me out in the water. But I thought he was fixing to launch me like David did. But no. And so what happens is they end up teaching me to swim.
Good.
And they
gave you
did
the confidence back in water.
They took me and showed me this is how you swim. We're not gonna duck you in the water. And I learned to swim. So now what happens? Well, the Porters find out that I learned to swim. And that pissed them off. Like, you embarrassed us and did all this stuff, and then you go with the Englishes and you learn to swim. And it was like that was another episode of let's beat the shit out of this kid. How dare you, be this way? And it was, so that was some of the stuff that happened. And so then there was this dynamic that I realized growing up, that the Porters kind of looked down on the Englishes because they thought the Englishes thought themselves high and mighty, more educated, kind of that kind of dynamic.
Well, it sounds like they were.
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean? Like,
but the Englishes, I don't remember any of them looking towards the Porters that way. I was never aware of. But they were just good, kind people. I do want to interject this. So my foster mom, Jessie, and her brother, there's three siblings, Jessie, Vicky, and David. Vicky, the middle child, was absolutely nothing remotely close like Jessie or David. She's, to this day, she's one of the sweetest, absolute kindest soul you will ever meet. I mean, just, you would never imagine she had siblings like that, because my kids love her to death. Stella loves her. She's just a sweet, and she's a little tiny girl.
So she's still around. She's still.
Yeah, she's still around.
You guys still have contact, apparently.
Yes, somewhat. Yeah.
Is that the only one out of the?
That's the only one
really
alive out of that whole family.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've all passed away. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but she was like the sweetest one, and she's just a beautiful woman. Raised, had her and Gary, my Uncle Gary Brown, started a family and had 3 kids, and she's got grandbabies. My Uncle Gary passed away, unfortunately, cancer a few years ago. But he was the same way. He was one of those. He knew, and his sisters, my Uncle Gary's sisters, who I'm still in contact with, they all knew what was happening here, what was going on. And I don't know, it was kind of one of those things where I think he wanted to shut it down, but didn't know how to do it.
Family pressure. I
Right.
mean,
yeah, it was some weird
that.
stuff. But anyways, so that was some of the stuff going on. And then I go into 3rd grade. So this is the summer of 74. I go into 3rd grade. And here's where my attitude just kind of where I became more about fuck it. Just had a fuck it attitude.
Yeah.
Because when I was in 3rd grade, I had a teacher. Her name was Mrs. Anderson. And she couldn't handle foster kids. She didn't. I found out years later that she was not a very kind person. And I thought she just didn't like me. Come to find out, she didn't like a lot of kids.
Yeah.
But she would do stuff, you know, that was pretty tough for me. Because I already feel like an outsider. I had a couple of friends. I mentioned before Arthur Bird, who I love to death, and Ricky Carrillo. But what she would do is she would, I had a speech impediment. She would humiliate me in front of the class, do these little things, have me stand up and read from this textbook, and I couldn't hardly read, and just to humiliate me on purpose. And if I get frustrated and upset, she'd send me to the back of the room. There's this hallway kind of off to the side kind of area, not really a hallway, but it's towards where the restroom is in the classroom. And I'd be stuck back there. It's basically the dunce, you know.
Yeah.
There's the clown kid, you know, what are the dumb kid, and maybe a spectacle. And so then what I started doing is I just started lashing out. I just got this attitude like I just didn't care anymore. I'm just okay. I'm just retard, because that's what I was called. Yeah. I was branded to be this retarded kid. So I would act up. I would do stupid stuff. Like there was one time there was a commercial back in the day, and people might remember this. It was called Rain Tree, and it was shampoo, if I remember right. Or maybe it was lotion. But anyways, so in the advertisement on TV, it would show this attractive blonde on a horseback riding through the desert, kind of, you know, going slowly, trotting along. And then lightning, you know, because the idea is dry desert. Lightning would, you know, strike, and there would be this tree, like an oasis, and be Rain Tree. And I think it might have been for lotion. Maybe it was for shampoo for women. But anyways, so what happened was I'm in school in 3rd grade, and these girls, you know, they're, you know, you're 3rd graders, you know, boys, girls, they, you know, they don't know how to get along. You know, you got cooties, can't stand you, Johnny, you're this and that.
I like you.
Yeah. So we're in the courtyard, and there's this row of trees, these mulberry trees, and I'm up in there with my friend Ricky Carrillo and Arthur, and we're not supposed to be climbing these trees, but we're up there, and it's off in a distance, these row of trees, and because the DeGiorgio school that I went to is out in the farmland, way out in the country, in the farm area. It's nowhere near any city or anything. It's like you drive out, you know, quite a ways to get to it. Yeah. So anyways, I'm up in this tree, and these girls come up, and one of them was Rosa Vidari, a cute little Mexican girl. But, you know, that time we didn't like each other. And she's like, I'm going to tell Mrs. Anderson. I'm going to tell her you're up in the tree. You're going to be in trouble. Well, you know, this is how psycho I was. One of the things I would do, I was like, all right, you know, she's down there at the bottom, and I'm up on the big limb looking at her, and she's telling me off, and her friends, her other girlfriends. And I just whip it out, start pissing on her, peed right on her. And while I'm doing it, I'm just going Rain Tree because that advertisement. That's how messed up I was. I just pulled it out, had to go pee, and I peed right on her. And, of course, you know, my ass was in the principal's office instantly. Yeah. But I would do stupid psycho stuff like that.
You did that shit today, man. You'd have the cops on
Oh,
you.
it'd be on the internet. It'd be all over the place. Yeah. And, you know, and back then, they had corporal punishment in schools, so you get swatted. And that was a common thing. So the principal is Mr. Rule. That was an interesting last name.
God,
Mr. Rule.
That's a cartoon name
Yeah,
for a
and he was a
principal.
big man. I mean, he was a big man. He was like 6'6", and everything. So I remember going, I got sent to his office so many times for beatings. And he had one of those big old paddles, with the holes so that the air doesn't, the velocity, get that velocity to smack that
That's
ass.
right. That's right. Aerodynamic.
Yes, exactly.
And the welts would happen where the holes are.
Right.
I remember
And
that.
so, that would happen. But Mrs. Anderson, I just got to the place where I didn't care no more, and I would do everything to be disruptive in that class, just to be a total pain in the ass.
Yep.
That's when I started, because of what was going on at home, I just became this totally opposite of anything good, anything smart, anything responsible as a kid. Didn't care about my schoolwork, didn't care about nothing. That's when they started sending me to psychiatrists, find out what's wrong with Johnny, what the hell's going on with him.
Yeah, and they didn't know either.
And they didn't either.
Yeah,
No,
they
they
didn't know
didn't.
either.
And I didn't care. So Mrs. Anderson, she would take me out in the hallway. So there's this long hallway that out of her classroom, and it goes down like that, and then there's a row of classes down here. So this hallway, she'd take me out there, and she would beat me. Because, again, back then, those
They could.
days, corporal
Yeah, back then
punishment
they
was
could.
allowed in schools. She would take me out there and just swat my ass. And I got to the place where I kind of liked it only because I could hear that reverberation. She'd hit my butt, and, it would boom down through that
Well,
hallway.
you disassociate at some point. You
Yeah.
know, like when these beatings are so often,
Right.
you just kind of go somewhere else and
That's
let it
it.
happen. And so you focused on the reverbberation
Exactly.
of the ass slap in the
Right.
hallway. That's
And I took pride in the
interesting.
fact that I knew my classmates in that classroom were hearing me getting my butt beat,
Mm-hmm.
and all the other kids in the other classrooms, because it was loud. And I didn't care. I mean, because like you say, you eventually get to where you're desensitized to it. You're like, oh, this shit's going to happen. Oh, well, let it happen.
Yeah, Spencer cracks me up. He, when he was getting his ass beat, he would say "harder, daddy," and
It's that reverse psychology. Smart kid. Come on.
yeah, smart kid,
That's not hard enough, man. Come on, give me some pain.
Yeah, it was really funny when I found that out.
So that's awesome. And Spence was a foster kid that you adopted.
Yeah.
So just in case people don't know, you and Justin adopted him almost a year ago now, ain't it?
In February. Of
in
this year.
February,
Yeah.
yeah.
February 24.
So,
and okay,
he's
so
a great
speaking
kid.
of your principal, I got to say this too,
Yeah.
because Spencer, I think he has his own assigned seat in the principal's office.
Is
He's
that
just there so much. Okay, there was one time where he was getting in trouble, and so he was in the principal's office, but it was close to adoption day, and he invited the assistant principal to the courtroom. Like while he was getting in trouble, he's like, "Oh, hey, by the way, I'm getting adopted. I'd love it if you could make it." And so
We
so
got
he-
this
he-
relationship.
He came out. Yeah, he came out. And
That's
got
awesome.
his picture taken with Spencer in the
That's
courtroom
awesome.
and stuff.
That's
yeah.
a good
It
principle.
was pretty cool. Yeah, he's a great dude.
And so, so that's where, at that age, I just 9 years of age, I decided, like I said, I had this don't give a fuck attitude.
Yeah.
And I would do stupid, crazy stuff just to do it because, like, well, you know what? I'm a retard. Send me to the psychiatrist
They
again.
expect it of me.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
going to get the punishment anyway,
Yep.
somewhere down the line for
Right.
something stupid. So it might
Yeah.
as well be my fault, actually.
Yeah.
You know, like
Own this shit.
there's a bunch of psychology behind why you did that.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
a whole other-
it's part of it is that what's that they call a fight or flight kind
Yeah.
of thing, and I'm like, nah, fuck it, I'm gonna fight it, but I'm gonna be a psycho.
yeah, there's
And I was just which compounded that relationship between me and Mrs. Anderson because now she's like, oh, this little fucking kid,
you know,
what do you
show
think?
him. And now it's
Yeah.
a battle of trumping
It
each other.
is. It literally became something really crazy. And like I said, years later, I find out that she just treated all the kids that way. Of course, me, dealing with my life, I just thought it was me. But, yeah, so.
She just shouldn't have been a teacher is
No,
really what it is.
should
you
not.
know?
As a matter of fact, they basically forced her to retire.
Yeah.
Or, so that happened years ago. But, so there's all that stuff's going on in my third grade. And so another thing was, it was during this time that my foster parents started bringing in more kids. So there's Clarence and I, and as I alluded to,
Because it was going so well,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
would they bring more? Just-
yeah, I I don't know.
Is it a money thing? I mean, I know there's some money wrapped up into it.
I'm sure
Is
it was.
yeah,
I'm sure it definitely had something to do with some of the money because Jessie never worked. She couldn't because she had scleroderma, and my foster dad was literally a workaholic. Again, most of the stuff he had no idea was going on because she hid it from him. And I've had discussions with friends where they're like, "Why the hell did you not ever tell your dad?" When you're a kid that's been bounced around from home to home, you don't want to get bounced around anymore. You're like, okay, this is my lot in life. And never knowing what a real family's like, a loving father and mother is really like to base anything off of. This is just the way it is. And I just didn't want to get taken out of the home again. It's like, I'm here. I don't want to go anymore. And so there's that psychological part that plays into all of this.
Yeah.
That's why I would never tell on nobody. I would never tell anybody I never told the teachers about what was going on at home. My best friend Arthur knew, and Ricky, my other close friend, they knew because I confided in them. And, of course, they'd see the welts. And that was part of it, too. I think I mentioned before. I became to where I took pride in the welts from the beatings because Jessie, because of her condition, having scleroderma, she couldn't hold a belt. So what she would do is she would wrap the soft end of the end of the belt and leave the buckle out because she could grip that, and that's what she would use that way to beat me. So I'd get these welts from the buckles on my back and on my arms and my legs because I'm dancing around when I'm getting the shit beat out of me.
Yeah.
And it just got to those places again. That age where it's like I'm going to own this shit, and I would go to school and I would show my friends, hey, check this out. I'd pull my shirt up, see this big old just bruise and everything. And a lot of times it was fresh because it happened that morning.
Right.
And that's how I dealt with it. It's like I wore it as a badge of honor. And, that was the psyche.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that has to be the psyche of a kid that should never have to deal with that stuff. Any kid. And so they would bring it. So they started having other foster kids staying with us. And that was the process, too. And part of it was, it got to the kind of place. I was talking to my brother Clarence here recently. I hit him up. I said, okay, I remember there was a sister, the first one. Her name was Del, D-E-L. And for years I knew her last name. I can't remember today for some reason. So I hit up my brother Clarence, and I said, hey, do you remember Del? Do you remember what her last name is? And he's like, he messaged me back, no, I don't remember her name, but I remember her. And then we had, there was like Dennis Moon. I remember her. A kid named Dennis, a kid named Troy.
So they're fostering D names.
All these foster kids. I couldn't remember most of their last names, but I remember. There's actually a picture, which will be in the next episode, where I'm going to talk about when I was in 4th grade and what happened there, the birthday party surprise that went downhill instantly. And there's a kid in these pictures I think he was Troy, and he was a foster kid. So what I found out when I got a little bit older was that my foster dad, who became my adopted dad, he would bring the caseworkers would bring the troublemakers. They called them home wreckers, troublemakers.
Oh, yeah.
To live with us. Because my dad, being a military man, he was a strict disciplinarian. He didn't put up with no shit out of no kids. And he was what I needed to counter what she was doing, even though he had no idea what she was doing. Right. My foster mother, the abuse. Because when I started acting this way at school, they're calling, and he's like, what the hell? So I'm just this troublemaker kid. And so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But so Dale comes in, and Dale was a little older than me. Clarence is 3 years older than me, so she's between Clarence and I in age. And I'm going to share some pictures in this episode. I'll give to Annie so she can put them up of Dale. Dale was such a sweet girl. I remember that. So my foster mom would bake chocolate chip cookies for my dad, my foster dad. And when you're a kid that does nothing but chores day in and day out, I mean, it was just this routine every day.
Yeah,
it's
saw that.
just what I do.
Yeah.
And to this day, I remember every process because it was constant every day. So during school, we get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. During the summer, we get up at 5 a.m. in the morning, every morning, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And during the weekdays, when my foster dad was working, we'd go in and fix his lunch. And it was either salami sandwiches or ham sandwiches. Salami was with mustard. No, excuse me. Salami was with mayo, and ham was with mustard. No lettuce. I remember that. No tomatoes. He didn't want any of that. And then he'd have a Dr. Pepper, and they had the old metal case lunchbox, and that's what we did. So that was part of it. Putting Ziploc or not, it wasn't Ziploc back then. It was those folded kind of baggies.
Oh yeah, the
with
sandwich
chips.
baggies.
Yeah, exactly.
Fold the flap and
Yep,
then do the
that's
thing
it.
and
Do all
yeah.
that, and then we do our chores. We dust. I always dusted the floors. They were wooden floors, and we dusted them. And I go make their bed. I dust their furniture, and this was every day. Go and make their bed in the master bedroom, dust their furniture, put everything up. If they had any snacks, take it to the kitchen, do the dishes. I remember Clarence and I would kind of get into it sometimes because he always washed, and I always had to rinse and dry and put up. So it's like you washed, and the other one rinsed and dried and put it up in the cupboards. So I'm like, I want to wash. So we get in sometimes, but he always won out because he was bigger than me. So that's what we would do. Mop the floors. I mean, set the table for dinner and all this stuff. Clean off the table after dinner. It was always, please be excused and stuff like that. If she fixed something that I didn't really like, you had to eat everything on the plate. So regardless, yeah. And so some of those meals affect me this day because I love Brussels sprouts. Back then, I hated Brussels sprouts. I love asparagus. Back then, I hate asparagus. I love sauerkraut. I'll eat sauerkraut right out of the jar without cooking it because I love it.
Zombie
just
cabbage.
Straight up. Yeah.
Wow.
Back then, I hated it. All of this stuff. The one thing from my childhood I've never accepted, I can't stand in this day, is soggy bread. Because I was in a foster home with an elder couple that would fix spinach, canned spinach, heat it up. And I don't know why she did this. She would take white bread and tear it into pieces and throw it on the spinach.
Really?
And make me eat it.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't. To this day, I cannot stand eating soggy bread. But I do love.
I can't do canned spinach.
But
That just sounds horrible to
But
me.
the thing is, I love canned spinach to the
Really?
point where I will take it for lunch and just the can and open it up. You get the kind that
You
go
watch
off the
too much
top.
Popeye as a
Yeah,
kid,
and
man.
I'd put salt on it, eat right out of the can. Yeah, so
my mom used to eat canned spinach and put white vinegar on it.
oh yeah, I've heard of that.
And
Yeah,
I
I can't
just-
do it.
What the?
Yeah, collard
It's
greens.
not,
I love.
it's not
yeah.
like greens. No, it's like white people greens. And that's just wrong. This
poor
is wrong.
poor white people
Yeah,
greens.
poor white people greens. It's not
So
real.
so those things that they're still with me to this day. Certain foods I hated as a kid, but I couldn't leave the table. And I remember sitting at the table for hours. She would make me until I finished my plate. And but it's just this constant chores thing, day in and day out. I never went outside and played. Never ever went outside and played. Never. It was go outside, pull the weeds in the flower bed. Go outside, mow the lawn. Go outside, prune the tree. Go outside, feed the dogs. Who were also another good part of my childhood was the dogs we
Dogs,
had.
yeah.
They were always happy to see me.
Always.
I was always happy to see them, and I didn't get to spend much time with them because when I started to, I had to get my ass back in the house.
Right.
Need to scrub the bathtub and the toilet, Johnny. Get in here and get the bathroom done.
So I will say that, like, a lot of times, well, not even just foster kids, but kids need structure. Mm-hmm. And I think that amount of chores seems way overboard to me.
Yeah,
But but the structure, the idea of structure,
Right.
like I think even you said it that like this military man was helpful.
It was.
You know what I
He
mean? Like,
was.
and
Extremely.
that structure is helpful. I suffer sometimes because my life is not very structured. I have to react to what
you're a
happens in my world.
fucking musician.
Yeah, among other crazy dumb shit that I do. But
Yeah,
it's,
exactly.
But yeah, my life isn't very structured. So Spencer will react to that. If I'm gone for a weekend,
Yeah.
then I come home and he's kind of like, he's gonna give me some shit.
Yeah.
I just know it. You know what I mean? He's gonna like poke the bear a little bit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not like you're working Monday through Friday, 5 to 9, or 9 to 5,
Right.
and home on weekends.
Yeah.
You're a musician.
Yeah. So there are certain things that we do as structure. Sunday mornings. This morning. Like I already know what's going to happen. Okay. We were out late last night. We had a show at Shamrock.
Yeah, we did.
Okay?
Yeah, we did.
So I didn't get to bed till about 3:00 this morning.
Right.
Okay. I can't go home and just crash. I'm on this high from
Oh, yeah.
performing, and
Yep.
I just have to kind of wind down. And I didn't really get to bed till about 3. So what happens on Sunday mornings is Spencer will come down, and he'll like climb on top of me, usually knee me right in the nuts while he's doing it, and just like, hey, Dad, can you turn on my phone? Can you turn on Roblox? Can I play the Xbox? You know, there's something there. And I'll usually go, nope. Are you hungry? Let's have breakfast first.
Oh, I thought you'd go, nope,
Let's
you
get
need
our
me in the
pills.
nuts. We're not doing anything.
yeah, right. No. Are you hungry? Let's eat first. Let's get our
Right.
pills in. Let's do this thing, you know, and so we could go about our
Right.
morning, you know. But there's like certain things that I can count on happening.
There's a little bit of structure there.
There's a little bit of structure hidden in the chaos,
Right.
and
For me, because of all that, I'm anal OCD.
yeah.
And Stella can tell you, I am extremely
What about what field are
everything.
you? Really?
I mean, I keeping track of things, scheduling, and it's benefited me being, you know, the guy that books the band and manages and all that. It's
Right.
been very beneficial in that aspect. But so here's a quick story for it. When I was in construction, land development back in the day,
Yeah.
before I moved out here to the Midwest, and I'd have contracts. I had several people. I had 55 employees under me.
Wow.
And so the foremans that worked under me would come into the office, and one time, I don't notice these things. You know, I don't notice that I'm OCD kind of deal.
Right.
So I have my desk in my office, and everything is a certain way, where I had my screen from my computer set up on the desk, where I had my tablet with notes, everything, my pens, pencils, everything, certain way. The guys told me that, so they came in one time. I had to step out of the office. We're going to have a meeting with the foreman. So I stepped out of the office to go get some paperwork that I need to go over with them, set of plans. And I come back, and they're sitting there, you know, so I'm talking to them about, okay, this, you know, the job's going to start on this day. Here's the schedule. Here's when we want to start work on the storm drain, and then we're going to go from there. We're going into sewer. We're going to start doing the sewer because the elevation is not as deep as storm drain, so you do the deepest part first. So I'm going through all this stuff. And as I'm talking to him, I grab my container that holds my pins, and I move it to a certain spot. And I just keep talking. We get done, finish the meeting. Well, they're standing there, and they start laughing. I go, what's so funny? And they told me, they said, you are so anal about everything on your desk that when you stepped out, all we did
We
was
just
move
moved
that
it."
thing over about 2 inches, and we're all like, watch, he'll fucking put it right back where you had it.
Yeah.
And without thinking,
Somebody won money on that.
while I'm
one.
talking, I just, without, you know, was subconsciously just, you know, and I'd seen it, I just kind of moved it back where I had it. They thought that was hilarious because those things I don't notice. It's just
Right.
how I am.
Yeah.
I'm very much, extremely like that, to where, you know, I'll fix magazines. You know, you go into a lobby waiting to see the doctor or something like that, and they'll be on the table, and I'll look at them, and I'll move them where they're nice, you know, like so people can see them. It's just stuff I do. But a lot of it had to do with that regimen, getting up, and Stella can tell you, I hate doing laundry. I hate washing dishes. I hate mopping floors. I hate cleaning the bathroom. I hate all that.
I have a method for all of it, though.
Yeah.
So I get very OCD on the things that I control,
Right.
and then there's a point to where I go, okay, fuck it, it's not mine. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and those chips are going to land where they are. If they need my help, they'll ask.
And
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but like if it's mine, like I will tell you that every bill in my wallet is face forward,
Right.
upright. Big bills in the back,
Yes.
small bills in the front.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
like that's how that's gonna go.
I learned that from my grandpa Curly.
You know,
He taught me that.
Yeah.
When I first got that wallet when I was a kid, I thought it was it. I got a wallet. A boy. I got a wallet. And he bought it for me, and he put some money in there. And then he taught me that. He said, what you do, larger bills towards the back, towards the smaller bills towards the front. To
Yeah.
this day. And they all face the same way.
they
You know,
have to.
all them
or-
presidents
or
are
my
looking
world
at me.
will implode.
Yeah.
I fucking hate.
Yep,
I can't
every one
do
of
it. You
them.
know,
Yep.
like, and there's a bunch of little things like that
Yeah.
build my world. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
these are little comforts that I have in
Yeah.
life, little things that I control, and I
Yeah.
know they're going to be this way. You know, now
And-
if I don't control it, it was
Right.
left up to me or a team of like if there's a team of people that I'm involved with, I'll give it up. I'll give away my because I recognize it as an OCD.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I'll give it up.
And a lot of that stuff I didn't realize growing up that that's what it was.
Yeah.
Until years later when I got older. And my wife has to deal with that. And this is the wonderful thing about our relationship is that she knows, "Hun, you mind doing the dishes?" And I'm like, "No, I don't want to do the dishes." And she don't make it an issue because she knows. And again, it's not an excuse. It's just I did it so much from second grade until I was a freshman in high school. Every single fucking day.
So this is funny, okay? I just got to say this because we're on the topic now, and my head's going nuts. But so in our house, we all do our own laundry,
Ooh,
even Spencer.
nice.
Okay, and this is what started this. Okay, when I do laundry, I buy clothes that are basically gonna survive the way I do laundry. Okay, I don't buy like silk shirts.
Right.
And I don't.
Yeah.
I don't buy shit that's just not going to survive. Okay,
Right.
But I wash it in cold so that I don't bleach the colors. I wear a lot of black,
Yeah.
and if I'm using hot water, it will bleach the color out of it,
And shrink things.
and
too.
it shrinks things, and it's just not a good thing. So Justin doesn't think it's clean unless it's been washed in hot water. Okay, so I don't let him touch my laundry anymore.
Yeah.
You know. And so I'm like, I'll do my laundry. You fucking do your laundry.
Yeah.
And so Spencer coming into the family.
Yeah. Now
you
he's
know.
got to learn.
Well, Mom did his laundry, and then I told him one day, I'm like, you know, he's doing your laundry wrong.
Yeah.
know.
Let me tell you.
I was like, let me show you how I do laundry. You know how Mom does laundry, and then you can figure out how you do laundry because it's about to be your chore.
Right. Right.
Okay, so
Yep. Your job.
he does
Handle
it Mom's way, but whatever, whatever. It's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
can't win them all.
Yeah.
But
So get back to Dell. She was the first foster kid that came and lived with us, and she was so sweet. So my foster mother, Jessie, would fix chocolate chip cookies, homemade chocolate chip cookies.
oh yeah,
Now, when you're a kid that doesn't get to have any much pleasure, there's no pleasure. There's no, at that time, there's really just nothing. We didn't watch TV. We never had sweet cereals. There was no Lucky Charms. There was no Fruit Loops. There was no Cocoa Pebbles, any of that.
yeah. 74, you're like grape nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love grape nuts to this day because of it.
Oh.
But it was all,
Malto meal.
yeah, it was all this plain stuff. We couldn't have sugar with it. It was, I don't know if it was, I don't think it was she was trying to be health conscientious. I think it was just like, fuck this kid. Here's your cereal, eat it and be happy about it. But, so she would fix these chocolate chip cookies. And there was this one time where, we're doing our chores, and Dale never did the chores. She did a little bit of chores. It was mostly Clarence and I. And I've always felt like we were purchased. I don't like to say slave because, the situation with all that, kind of thing.
I get you.
But in all reality, we were purchased servants. That's all we did. I'm going to allude this real quick. Side note: my brother Clarence, who I hit up about Dale, there's a lot of things he's like today. A lot of things he's done, and everything. And I've had conversations with our other brothers about it. I've had conversations with my half brothers that I just recently discovered, Ron. And Casey would conduct himself. That's why he goes by now, Casey. He conduct himself a certain way. And I always just took it as just that's how he is. He's just fucked up in the head. He just does this stuff because of that. It never entered my mind because what I dealt with as a kid, what I was dealing with, that was my world.
Yeah.
But my brother was dealing with it too. And I never seen that. I never recognized. So when I'm talking to Clarence here recently about Dale, and he mentions these other people, kids that he remembers, that I remember them too. And he knows about the podcast. He says he's seriously thinking about writing a book. I'm trying to remember what the title was. It was a very fitting title. And he said he's going to talk about stuff that he went through. and what he dealt with. I never thought of it. It never entered my mind. The shit he went through, because it was just what I was dealing with.
Well, you're dealing with so much, man. It filled
Yeah.
your world, and it filled his world.
It did.
So, like, that
And he-
conversation just never happened. It wasn't a thing.
And he
You-
mentioned this incident, which I remember like it happened yesterday. And he mentioned about this incident and what happened and what caused it. He tried to kill himself. Literally attempted suicide, and they rushed him to the hospital, had to pump his stomach and everything. When I was a kid, I remember all this stuff going on. It's crazy how it played out. And it was because the way Jesse treated him made him feel. And I never took the time to realize that the way he acts to this very day, he went a different path than I went in life. He went more destructive path in some ways. And always, I just had this attitude. He's just a fuck off and doesn't give a shit about nobody. And it wasn't until he just recently said, because he never talked to me about it. We never had these conversations. And when he said these things, I was like, oh my God, I remember that. Him coming in from high school, he's 16 years old. And Jesse getting into his face, and he just kind of blanked out. And I remember him sitting in his dining room. She's cussing him out. She's got scleroderma, so her fingers are kind of crooked. She can't straighten them out. It's disease. She's got it in his face, and he just started laughing at her. And
Again, the dissociation.
he
It's
just
like-
started laughing at her. That pissed her off more. So she goes in the kitchen, and she gets a skillet, iron skillet.
Jesus.
And she's holding this iron skillet. And I'm standing there. You know, my mind is, well, I remember those as a kid that, well, I don't want to do that. Okay, I'm not going to laugh at her. And she literally took that skillet and just hit him upside the head with it, hard as she could,
Jesus.
and knocked him out. And he hit the floor. And I remember he was laying there, and he kind of came to, and he got up, and I remember he was just sitting on his knees, kind of sitting there, and blood running down from his head.
Yeah.
My mind as a kid, being 13 years old, said, my brother's crazy or fuck.
No.
I didn't know he had taken drugs at school because he was done with living. And he made it home, and this incident arises, and then they took him to the hospital, and I remember they rushed him to the hospital, and that's when they pumped his stomach. And I remember them coming back saying that some kids, some friends had slipped him some stuff and all this
Oh, yeah,
shit.
the excuse.
And for years, that's what I thought happened.
Right.
I mean, I thought the reason he was on drugs because he's just a fucking dumbass, and his friends slipped him some drugs. No, it wasn't until just recently, like a few weeks ago, I found out.
Really?
Yeah,
A few weeks ago.
a few weeks ago
Wow.
when I hit him up about Dell, that he told me about that, and he didn't go in detail, but he just said, "Yeah." He goes, "Johnny, I did some stuff. I tried to kill myself." You know, when this, and it wasn't like, you remember when I tried to kill myself? When that, he goes, I tried to kill myself. When he started saying what he wrote to me about it, I'm like, oh my God, that was that incident.
Yeah.
So you deal with that stuff. And then years later, I find out, and it's sad because he has this, I don't know if Clarence Casey knows this, but he has this reputation that his siblings look at him a certain way, and it's not fair. We've branded him to be a certain way with never taking into account, wait a minute, he was in that same fucking home as me. You know?
This is why this is important, okay? This is why it's important to get your story out.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these hidden stories, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's not just you, it's not just your family. There's a lot of
Right.
hidden stories. Okay?
Yeah.
You were dealing with so much individually that, like, the thought to just share it just never really came up.
No, and that's
You know
why
what
I
I
was
mean?
saying we started this episode that there's shit I forgot about.
There's a certain amount of perceived shame.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of perceived weakness.
Well, you know,
whatever it is. I mean, but it's not real.
Right.
That was instilled upon you by your abusers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and keeping you guys segregated in that sense.
Yeah. And the thing is, being a 58-year-old man, I never ever want anybody's sympathy. I don't want people feeling sorry for me. And I don't. And then sometimes, dealing with this stuff, I don't want people to think that I'm a weakling either, because you got that masculinity type. You got that frame of mind.
Yeah.
But it's like, but this is what I went through, and I want my kids to know what their dad went through, and people that deal, like you said, everybody's got a story, and there's been people, my brothers, Gary specifically, went through a lot worse, way worse than what I went through in a different area. I don't remember if he was ever abused physically like I was, but there was a lot of mental shit he
I'm
dealt
going to
with.
guess yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
probably.
I'm going to guess yes.
Yeah, very likely.
Because abusers follow a very predictable pattern.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
if it happened to you, it happened to them.
Right.
Typically,
So, third time we'll give this a try. So Dell, what she ended up doing, because I was her little baby brother, and so she snuck out some chocolate chip cookies and brought it to the room late at night, so I could have chocolate chip cookies. Well, you're a kid. The next morning, Jessie sees my bed. Make your bed, and then she sees the crumbs.
Yeah.
You're a kid. You don't think, oh shit, hide this. You're just like, oh. And well, she demanded no. I go get those cookies. Well, I'm only going to tell on Dale, because Dale was such a sweet young girl,
Right.
and a sister to me, foster sister. I wasn't going to do it because I didn't want her to go through what I went through. And my brother Clarence, Casey, we were both that way. We were both that kind of way where, I'm going to take the blows because I don't want you to go through this. I'll stand up and say I did it. And
I'm good at taking blows.
We did it.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
that's what we would do. And so I did, and I got the beating of my life. I mean, once again, just there was an incident where one time Jessie told me she's going to whip me. And I think I alluded this before. I never spanked my kids more than 3 swats. And she said, I'm going to give you a whipping. And she said, Johnny, and we always had dropper trowel, laundry. That was mandatory. So I had to drop pants, bare ass. And she said, I'm going to give you 3 swats. And if you just take it, that's all it is, 3 swats. But I swear to God, if you move, then we're going to town. And so I remember, we had to grab our ankles. It was just that procedure. Assume the position, drop your trousers, grab your ankles. And she hit me the first time, again, with the belt buckle. She couldn't hold the belt buckle in her hand, so she went to reverse. So it comes across my ass. And, it was painful, and I just steadied myself. She hit me again, second time. Tried not to move. I just my mind was hold firm. The third time, she came down right on that tender spot between the ass crack and the lower part of your back, where it's super tender. As soon as she hit that, natural reaction as a little 9-year-old, I jump up.
Yeah, can't.
And I remember her saying, well, I fucking told you. And she just went to town, beat the fuck out of me. To the point, she chased me through the house. I wound up in the kitchen, and in the kitchen, there was a refrigerator. There was a maybe 6-inch gap between the refrigerator and the wall, and I wedged myself in there to get away from her. To the point that she thought that was so funny later on that she would tell people about, I was beating Johnny, and he got in between his. She thought that was a funny story to tell people.
She's telling people.
Yeah,
that
she would
story.
tell family. She just thought it was funny how I was able to wedge myself. But that's some of this the stuff that I went through, and Dale was very. She was a sweet girl. First time I ever had a sister that I remember. I have older sisters and younger sisters, but at that age I wasn't never around them. But these foster kids would come in, and she was with us probably it had to have been 2 years, because there's 2. I have pictures of Christmas time us wrapping presents for Gary and Jessie. And that was the other thing. I always lavished affection on Jessie. I'd constantly tell her I love her. Before we go to bed, we have to go to bed, come over and give her a hug, give her a kiss and good night. Gary, I'd come over and give him a hug, good night, and go to bed. I would do that because that's my mom and dad kind
Yeah.
of thing, even though she's doing this stuff. And I want to say again, just so people understand, she went through hell as a kid. It's a cycle. She was abused sexually, physically
Yeah.
by her stepdad.
We talk about that a lot here. That cycle.
And that was that cycle. And at that time, I just thought she was mean as fuck. Until years later, and I remember her talking when I got a little bit older, telling me some of the stuff that she went through as a kid. And, because the dynamics of that relationship started evolving because I'm older and I'm stronger and I'm not this little kid anymore. So some things changed. Looking back, I understand why she acted the way she did. It was not right. It wasn't an excuse that condones it, but I get it why she was that way.
Right. You understand the process. You sympathize a bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it right,
No.
but you
No.
understand a bit. And I think that understanding is important.
And it's what I've always said is that thing about the only way to heal is part of that is forgiving. You'll never forget it because those scars are in you forever.
and
mentally.
they've affected who you are.
Yeah.
They created who you are to a point.
Yeah. There's things that happen even in my adulthood. There's things Stella can tell you. I'll see something on TV that'll trigger me, or I'll be around in a certain environment that will trigger me to some traumatic event in my childhood, where I got to step aside out of the scene because it's really hit me hard.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this before. I'm a huge Big Bang Theory, so we're going to end up the podcast here now. I'm a huge Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
I kid you not. That's all I watch. I come home after driving a truck, hauling grain, or we come back from a tour. I want to relax in the recliner and watch Big Bang Theory. It is literally my comfort food for my psyche. I just love it.
What is it about it? I mean, what?
There's so
What's
much there that I relate to. I
Really?
relate to every one of those characters in some way. But the one that I relate to the most is Leonard Hofstadter. He's the one that has a relationship with Penny.
Right.
He's the one that his character I connect to so much. So there's this scene. It's the second to the last episode of the series, season 12, episode 23. I can't remember the title of it right off the top of my head. So he has his mother, who's a psychiatrist kind of type, psychologist, right? She
Really
writes,
cold.
Really cold.
Yeah.
She writes these books about him. She tests him and do all of her experiments, basically mental, whatever, with him growing up.
Yeah.
In the second to last episode, she comes into town and she's got this kind of relationship with Sheldon, who's a super intelligent physicist
With Asperger's, basically.
Exactly, with Leonard. They're best friends, living in this apartment together. She's taken a huge liking to Sheldon, and she's like, they got this connection because of their mentality. So she comes to visit Leonard. Leonard's married to Penny at this time, and she wants to hang out with Leonard. And he's like surprised. He has this portion where he says, "There's a but. I know there's a but in there," and it never happens. So he basically goes to the place where they work. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Anyways, the university. Sheldon comes in and says, "Oh, hi," and I think it's Beverly, right? It's Beverly, and hey, good to see you, and so Leonard's, expecting Sheldon, "I'm here to rescue you from this mundane da da da." He's kind of insults Leonard in what his work is, and Beverly says, "Oh no, I'm gonna stay here with Leonard. I'm gonna enjoy it. I want to see what he's doing." Well, it's a shock to Leonard and to Sheldon, because this relationship Leonard has had all these years with his mother. So what happens is, come to find out, as that episode goes through transpires, she's actually doing an experiment on him again.
Yeah.
It's another one of her, because she alludes to it later on in that episode that, I'm doing research for my next book to find out if my teaching skills and raising skills is, would you say, good, bad, satisfaction, all this stuff, kind of criteria. Well, that's when he realizes this whole thing, you're doing it to me again.
Again and again.
And he blows up. And he storms out of the apartment. He goes across the hall He's telling Sheldon, because now Sheldon is funny. He's perplexed. He can't understand why Beverly don't want to be around him. Like, what did I do? He's telling his girlfriend, or his wife, did I insult her? Did I do something wrong? And so Leonard comes in, and he's like, oh, he's got his hand up. He's like, I should have known. I should have known. He goes off on about how his mom was just fucking doing this shit to me again. And Sheldon's like, oh, thank God. I thought it was me. And he's like all happy about it.
Yeah.
So I relate to that, because then Leonard goes back, and Penny has some words with her too. I'm not going to get into all that, but she has some words, and so Leonard comes to me and he goes, so his mother said, "Are you calmed down?" He goes, "Oh no, I'm not calmed down." He says, "But basically, we're going to have. I got to tell you, we're going to have a conversation." So Penny leaves the room because she's like, "Okay, I'm not going to get in the middle of this." And so his mother's like, "Well, I'm waiting." He's like, "No, yeah, you're going to wait." And so he starts telling her about how he feels. Now, just, you don't care. You do this to me. You've done this all my life. And he says, and he's like, I got something to say. And then he stops himself. He goes, it's not worth it. You're not going to change. It's not going to change anything.
No.
And then he makes this statement, which is so powerful to me, that every time I see the episode, I've watched this series so many times. I've seen this episode so many times. It still hits me hard. He says to her, I forgive you. And she goes, I didn't ask for it. He goes, I don't care. I don't care if you don't ask. I forgive you. And then he says, and I forgive myself. And you see this perplexed look on her face, expression like, what? He says, because I've held on to this stuff for too long. It's time to let it go. And he says, man, that feels good. And that's how I was. For years, I held on to so much shit against her without taking into account knowing what she went through as a child. It's so fucked up.
Did you ever get to have that moment?
No.
Never got to tell her?
No. She passed away when I was, I think 18.
Wow.
The disease got to her, but we never had any kind of relationship where I could. But yeah, but that was the part where my life started changing in the right direction, was when I realized. And you don't do that until you get older. When you're young, you're just like, this woman just hates me, and I'm going to be a crazy nutcase because of my third grade teacher and all of this shit.
It's perception based on the knowledge you know.
It is, and what you're going through day by day by day. And but so that's why I'm a huge Big Bang Theory fan, because and Leonard's my favorite character because I see so much in him that I was that kind of. He has this tenderness. He has this. He's firm when he needs to be. But But that episode, to this day, it kills me every time I can see it tonight. I go home right now on demand and watch it, and it will. I'll sit there and start tearing up because I have to leave the room because I see that. I know what that is, even though that's fictional. It still connects, and so that's one reason why we're doing this podcast, is because there's some stuff I want to get out of my system if I can.
Yeah.
And hopefully
it's backseat therapy, brother.
Yeah,
I don't have a PhD, but let's
exactly.
go.
We still got to get Dr. Phil in here.
Dr. Phil.
Our Dr. Phil, Phil Martin.
It's not
it's
not the one you think it is. It's a different Phil.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's this episode. Next episode.
Brother, next episode.
Next episode, we're going to fourth grade, and I was telling Stella today. I feel like, gosh, I talked to you about this. I talked to Annie, our producer. I don't want this to be like, oh my God, it's so depressing, so down, so dark. But it is. I mean, it sucks because that's just how it is.
It's reality, okay? It's just
yeah. But as the years progress, and I grow older as a child, and there is so many lights there at the end of that tunnel that pops up through teachers and coaches and friends. That's what kept me sane and kept me from going really off the deep end emotionally and everything to abuse myself, was because, and that's what we're going to get into in these coming episodes, is how friendships, which is important, those relationships and positive mentors Even teachers and coaches I don't think they knew they were being a mentor to me, but because the way they were towards me was so life-changing, and my mind maturing, from getting into becoming an adult, young teenager in high school. But we'll get there eventually. So I just want people to know, it's not always going to be crazy, dark, and gosh, this is just, oh, fuck. But it does get better, and I want to get into that because that is what has been a tremendous influence in my life, even more so than the negative stuff that happened as a kid. Yeah. That's what countered it in a strong, tremendous way, to where today I'm a loving husband of 6 kids and 9 grandbabies. And I got a band with you that we have fun.
Front man of a great band.
And I'm not a psycho. So
not in public anyway.
Not in public anyways. Now we got a karaoke contest to do, so we got to get out of here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
That's what we do.
Hey, I really appreciate you sharing. I know it's not always easy, but I love you, man, and I appreciate you sharing everything. Thank you to our sponsors again, and we're just going to keep going. We're gonna get through it.
Yeah.
So thanks for tuning in to Backseat Therapy. Jon
it.
English, Aaron Underwood. We'll see you next time.
Little boy playing in the street. Worn clothes, no shoes on his feet.